Am I huge on your screen or am I small?
Well, I have a side by side, like long ways this way on my screen. So, all
I
right.
gotta figure out how to do that.
I think we're recording now. I think up in the corner, maybe where it gives you an option for speaker view or
Oh, there we are.
view. There you go.
I
Okay,
was
hi.
like, I was like really small and I was like, I can't tell what I look like. That's gonna
Right.
drive me crazy.
So, everybody, hi. I'm Megan, Romance by the Book. We're here with Tessa Bailey, our February Book of the Month author. We read Love Her or Lose Her, and we loved it so much. And so, we're going to talk all about that and like her process and what she's got going on. So, it should be awesome. So, Love Her or Lose Her, second book in the series. Of course, I loved Fix Her Up so much. And so I
Thank you.
wasn't sure like if I would ever love another one as much. And of course, it's obviously a totally different type of story too, which is good. But what made you want to do like a marriage in trouble story to start with?
Well, I feel like as I get older and I've been married, I'll be married for 13 years in next month.
Yeah.
And this month, depending on when this goes live.
Yeah.
And I think like those kind of stories get more appealing to me as I get older.
Hmm.
Like when I was in my early 20s, I would never want to read a marriage in trouble book because you're like missing the meet cute and you're missing, like the blush of first love and all those things.
Right.
But I don't know. It's like romance is still alive in your marriage at 13 years later. There's still obstacles and there's still like the stakes are still as high as a first, like two people that just met.
Right.
So I don't know. And I also started listening to this podcast, Where Should We Begin by Esther Perel.
Hmm.
And she does these like anonymous married couples sessions that just like rivet me. Every episode is so riveting. And I was like, I'm going to write a married couple and like send them to therapy and have it be real, like have it be, something that people, still romantic and still fun, but also be like a real topic that people are, deal with, which
Yeah.
is, that sometimes your marriage, it hits a speed bump and you have to figure out how to get over it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So, and if one of the other things you employed in the book is the love languages, which of course, I learned about in my premarital counseling class that we had to take before I got married in 2008. And, and so we figured out pretty early on, luckily, that, well, we had already been dating for 5 years by then, but, that my husband's and mine are the same as Dom and Rosie. So he's acts of service and I'm words of affirmation. So
Really?
so we had to figure out like how those would mesh and not only like how to show each other in the other person's way, but also how to interpret when they show it to them in their way. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And so yeah, that definitely helped us a lot, like from the get-go. So I liked seeing how that um affected them once they figured out, especially Rosie, once she figured out all these things that he'd been doing that she just didn't know anything about, and how loved they did make her feel, except for that she had no idea that it was even happening, basically. So I really liked that part a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like I knew about the love languages, but I didn't know what mine was, and I didn't know what my husband's was. So we actually recently took the test, and I really genuinely thought his was acts of service. I thought I was words of affirmation, and he was acts of service. And it turns out he's actually quality time. That's his love language. Like that's how he wants love to be shown to him.
Hmm.
And so like it's crazy. It's like just knowing that little thing about him has changed the way I behave. And I feel like it's been such a positive change. Like tomorrow I'm taking the morning off of work so we can go have breakfast because I need to show him like I'm willing to put aside what I'm, you know,
Right.
what
Yeah.
I'm passionate about and what takes up my days to spend time with you. And like I need physical touch. That's my thing.
Okay.
Shocking for those who read my books. But like a lot of times it's not always sex. It's like stroking my hair at the end of the day
Right.
or like hugging me when I come into a room or something.
Yeah.
But it's been really cool. Like I learned a lot about myself and my own marriage through writing Love or a Loser. So I mean that's pretty rare that
Yeah, that's
happens.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, there's a lot of great secondary characters in the book. Some of which, obviously, we met in. Well, I guess we met them all, most of them in book one. But we got to know Georgie and Travis a lot more in book one. But Marielle, my partner, wanted me to ask you how you use the secondary characters to support and push the main characters. Like, how do you decide like who fits in the role of doing those kind of things for your main characters?
I mean, I wish I could say there was more planning that goes into it. I mean, in this case, like the whole series started off with this idea of three women getting locked into a room together and realizing they all are miserable because of men and going, fuck this, we're done with men.
For
Like,
sure.
let's form a
Yeah.
club
Justice.
where it's just women. Yeah. And, you know, that's a great, fun concept, but I had, you know, you can't always start where you want to. You have to kind of like build the story around that and then get there.
Yeah.
So in this case, Bethany, who she's the next book in the series, she's
So
like
excited.
she's the oldest sister. She's got the worst man luck out of all of them. She's
Mhm.
kind of the driving force behind this whole series, and she's the one that decides to form the Justice League. So, you know, that's kind of where I started. I was like, I know I need Bethany to be like the point guard on this one.
Right.
And then I fit the other two female leads into roles. I usually start with the females, to be honest. Like I build the characters that I want, the heroines I want, and then I find their foil. You know, like I try to write either their opposite, their exact opposite, or you know, their identical match. I find some way for them to butt heads. So um, yeah, the secondary characters, I sometimes it's really organic. Sometimes it happens throughout the course of writing where they push the plot forward some way.
And so, have you ever written a secondary character that you weren't planning to have their own book, but then later you were like, oh crap, it's happening, and then it happened?
Jeez, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's happened a ton of times.
Okay.
Um, I think in the Made in Jersey series, I don't know if I was planning on giving Renner a book, but he
Mhm.
was like, he was the villain in
Right.
like, yeah, in a couple of the books. And so deciding to give him a book was like, I asked my editor, I think, I was like, can I give him a book? You know, I mean, like,
Right.
because up until that point, it was straight, like, it was all male, female books the whole
Yeah.
way. And then he's obviously, Rick Renner's gay.
Yeah.
And I was like, can I just write a, you know, male book at the end of this series, like, tack it on at the end? And thankfully, I got to write it because it was I really loved writing that
It's a
book.
great book. I love that book.
Um,
That whole series is probably my favorite series of books.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thanks.
I just think it's very relatable, and funny enough, there's lots of tropes in there that are normally not my favorite, like second chance and um all these other like
Older woman, younger
older woman,
man.
younger man. Though best friend's brother sister is kind of my favorite thing, so that one worked out
Oh,
well for me. But honestly, it's funny because River and Vaughn are my favorite, and that second chance is very love hate for me a lot of times. Like they're usually just so angsty, and like I don't know, something about that one, I guess because it had been so long, like that the angst was still there, but it wasn't like
yeah.
their whole life anymore, you know what I mean? And so I feel like I went into it not so like worried about how stressed out I was going to be while I was reading it, and it became my favorite one.
I don't like to write stressful romance.
Yeah, I
Honestly,
know.
I try to find a way to make it fun no matter what the topic is. And like, even if it's the heaviest topic, like I will find a way to make it light. It's escapism to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to read something. I mean, I appreciate angsty books and sometimes I really want one. And there's some authors that can do it amazingly well. But when I read a book, I want it to be hot and sexy and intense, but I also want there to be fun, you
Yeah,
know?
definitely.
So yeah, usually it's the villain that ends up getting an unexpected book, I would say. Like
Okay.
Bowen wasn't supposed to get a book, and then
Right.
he actually spawned a whole series.
And I know that he's one of your favorite ones you've written too.
Yeah, Bowen from Risking It All is he's definitely in the top three, you
Yeah.
know? So, and I don't think anybody's ever going to take him down.
He's pretty fucking great.
Thanks.
That series is great too. In fact, funny enough, Henrik is probably my favorite one in that series, and I don't think that book gets enough love. I love that book.
I know. The last book in the series, yeah, sometimes they tend to get overlooked. Like people have like kind of, they love the first book the most and they don't want to, nothing else is going to top it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you have a dark horse like Duke come out in book 3 that everybody loves the most, even though you didn't see him coming.
Duke. I feel like I've been talking about him the last couple days a lot.
Right. Well, yeah, they talked about him on the Fated Mates podcast, so that was fun for me to listen to.
Somebody asked for a recommendation for a plus-sized hero in one of my groups, and I was like, I don't usually recommend myself in these threads, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you to go read Worked Up because he's the best. I mean, like,
so great.
He's got a beer belly. It's the best.
He mostly communicates and grunts. It's magical. I love him so much. So I know you said you listened to the podcast, that relationship podcast a lot when you were first starting to do Love Her or Lose Her. Was there any other like research you did as far as like marriage issues and what would be the most, I guess, relatable for people as far as like deciding what their problems were going to be?
No, I didn't, I did have to research like therapy, I've never been to couples counseling before. So there's a lot of terminology and things like that I can just pull out of thin air. I had to go and I had to listen to I had to read a lot of therapy, articles. And I had to, like I said, the podcast was really helpful because I kind of got that jargon, the pace of it, and the way therapists tend to pose questions instead of answering yours, which I think everybody kind of knows that, but there is a way that they subtly kind of like give you suggestions until you realize what the meat of what you're trying to get to is.
Right.
So, yeah, I think therapy is like starting to lose its like taboo.
For sure.
Like a lot of people go to therapy and a lot of people should go to therapy. I think it's a great resource and it's not something that people should shy away from.
I totally
so it was also kind of cool just to be like, hey, these people are going to therapy and it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean their marriage is over. It actually means it's going to be stronger.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And the therapist was hilarious. That was such a great side character. He was a total trip.
Yeah. I don't know if any parents out there watch the TV show Victorious.
I know what it is, but I haven't seen it.
So there's their teacher, his name is like Sikowitz or something, the teacher, and that's like what I had pictured as the loopy therapist the whole time, the pot smoking hippie therapist.
Okay.
Just kind of like sandals and like long hair and like an open kimono basically at all times. So he was really fun to write, and he, like I said, I have to find ways to lighten the mood no matter what I'm doing. So he made it pretty easy.
Yeah, definitely comic relief for sure.
Yeah.
And also, of course, pumping up the tension between Bethany and Wes, who are going to be the couple in book 3, which is very exciting. So I guess that's not going to be next for you, because next is your paranormal romance, which everybody's been so excited about. So but when does book 3 come out?
Book 3 in the Hot and Hammered series, it's called Tools of Engagement.
Awesome.
And it's coming out. That was a last minute pull. I came up with that title myself.
That's awesome.
And I was like, this is never gonna, like, they're gonna hate this. And I actually couldn't believe they picked it, Tools of Engagement.
That's awesome.
But it comes out in September.
Okay.
It's totally enemies to lovers, and basically Bethany's been wanting to flip this house. She's basically wanting to flip a house on her own the whole series. And she's finally going to get the chance. And I don't want to give anything away.
Oh, don't if you don't want to. But yeah, I just know that, like, we're definitely excited to read it, and hopefully we can talk about that one in here at some point too. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's very
it's
exciting to get to see two characters kind of butt heads as you go along, and then see things explode for them in their book. That's
yeah. The
really
thing about that though is like enemies to lovers. It's I love writing it because the hero always secretly worships the heroine. You know, it's like he doesn't ever really hate her.
yeah.
I don't know. That's not fun to me.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. Well, in Fated Mates podcast, they were talking about Brent and Hayden, which of course is another awesome one that everybody loves, which is definitely enemies to lovers too. So you do it very well.
Thanks. It's actually really fun. It's just a fun thing to write. And this one, there's the twist is, well, she's also an older woman, younger man. It's
Mhm.
also an older woman, younger man situation. But the banter between these two, it's so good. Sometimes it just hits. Like
Yeah.
some characters you're writing, and I never really have a problem writing dialogue, but sometimes it flows so much better with certain characters.
Hmm.
And oh my god, these two, like Bethany and Wes, it was just like flying off the page. Like their banter is off the hook. It's the
That's
best.
awesome. I can't wait. So I guess it's only like what, 3 weeks or something, 2.5 weeks until your paranormal comes out, Reborn Yesterday.
Yes.
So what made you want to write an Undertaker heroine? I'm so excited to read this.
I've always wanted to. I know that's so weird, but I am really morbid. Like if you've met me in real life, you probably know. I will want to talk to you about murder at some point. It will just come
I do love my true crime shows too. I'm with you on that.
yeah. And like I remember that show Pushing Daisies that was on
I
TV.
love that show.
I
Yes.
loved Pushing Daisies because it was morbid and it was about death, but it was also like romantic and quirky, and I loved that whole tone. And I've
Yeah.
always wanted to write something like that. So, it was just kind of like a timing thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think I wrote this in the acknowledgments. Is like I lost my father, 5 months ago, and death and like just the way that time works and how fast it moves and sometimes how slow it moves. It's just like in my head, and like this book is not dark at all. It's definitely a lighthearted paranormal. And I mean, it's got the sexy intensity, but it was just like, I can't write. I was like, I need to write something where there's higher stakes and where there's a deeper meaning kind of right now.
Hmm.
And so I was like, it was just a timing thing. I had the opportunity to write it, and it's what my brain wanted to write. So that's where it went.
Yeah.
Uh, I wasn't expecting to write vampires. I don't know. I just had this, the first scene just came to me. She's like about to embalm this guy. And she's like, he's the most beautiful man I've ever seen. And I have this weird draw towards him, and he's affecting me in this way. I don't understand. And then he wakes up, and it turns out like his friends brought him to the mortuary, his vampire friends brought him to the mortuary while he was sleeping as a prank. And so now he's like, yeah, it's super lighthearted. It's fun. So he wakes up and he's like, "Oh Jesus Christ! I have to erase your memory now. Like you can't know I'm sorry that this happened to you, but you know." And she's like, "You just came back from the dead. This is crazy." And he's like, "You don't understand." So there's that whole scene, and then her trying to convince him not to erase her memories, and then she's finally like, "Well, okay, fine. Like if you have to do it, that's fine. But like, just so you know, my life's in danger. And if you erase my memories, I'm not going to tell you why." So he can't do it. And this whole story happens. And
Oh, I love it so much. I'm so excited.
yeah, and it's just like, and then speaking of secondary characters, oh my God, there's a vampire slayer sidekick. It's very fun.
That's awesome. I'm so pumped to read that.
Yeah.
So, there's a few questions that Marielle and I always ask everybody. And hers is, if we were to catch you like in the middle of writing, like we're a fly on the wall, like what do we see? What's your situation while you're writing normally?
I mean, I usually I usually am in pajamas.
Okay. Nice.
I'm trying to not look at Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the struggle is constant.
It's real.
I don't listen to music. It's very like I have an hourglass I turn over. It's a half an hour, and I do sprints. Um, but there's nothing really exciting. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything exciting about like what I look like. Well,
Okay.
I mean, I just made over my office, so it's pretty.
Right.
But that's it. I don't listen to music. I don't eat any certain foods or anything like that. I've always got coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And my question I always ask is, what is your favorite trope to read as opposed to write?
I have a hard time not picking up Best Friend's Little Sister. I love anything
My favorite
forbidden.
too.
Anything that's forbidden, I want to read it. Like priests and like I mean anything like no cheating, none of
Yeah.
that like forbidden wise. But
Hmm.
if anything like where he's not allowed to be with her, but he can't help it, that stuff gets me every time.
Well, and that's like Bowen's story for sure. So I understand why you love him the most. So good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I definitely think lately I've been reading historicals and I really like an eccentric nobleman
Okay.
as well. I don't know if that's a trope, but I do love when like he's slightly off his slightly, crazy, like he's a recluse. Maybe he has an obsession with the heroin, something
Okay. Yeah,
things
it's
like
funny.
that.
I
Yeah.
just recently started getting back into historicals. I've read them here and there over the years, but I usually, if I read too many in a stretch, then I like get sick of it and I have to like switch to something else. And so there's just been some years where I've only read like one or two here and there. And then I've just recently gotten back into more. I've been reading, well, I read Kerrigan Burns' How to Love a Duke in 10 Days or whatever that one's called. And that one fucking broke me, dude. I was not ready for that. I was like, what? But it was 5 stars for sure. And then I read Joanna Shoup's two books she's had in her series so far, which is like Gilded Age in New York. So that's
Yeah.
been kind of fun
Is
because
it
it's
the
like
Knickerbocker series?
it's the one after that. It's called Uptown Girls. And so
Oh, okay.
like the first daughter is a daughter and she ends up with her father's lawyer.
Oh,
Um, it's so that was really good. The Rogue of Fifth Avenue or something, I think it's called. And then
okay.
the second one, the daughter doesn't want to get married and she wants to open a casino for ladies. And so she meets he goes to the male casino that she's not supposed to be in and convinces the owner to like tutor her basically. And he hates her dad for something that happened in his past. And so he's like, sure, I'll help you out and get you into gambling. Your dad will hate it. It'll be great. And so that one was good too. But yeah, I've been
I
on a
love
kick lately.
that.
So it's they've all been good. And I'm definitely looking forward to the second book in that Kerrigan Burns series. I know that she's one of your favorites. I haven't read the series with the Highwaymen yet, but I have all of them. I keep looking at them on my shelf like, oh, I don't know if I can do it right now. I
Highwayman
really want to.
is that's what I'm talking about when he's like been carrying a torch for the heroine since they were children and searching for her his entire life. I mean, that's the depth of that's what I want. I want that kind of depth of like this like is a love story that will change the course of history.
Yeah,
Like that where you're getting like something epic when you pick it up.
yeah,
And she
definitely.
gives that. She delivers that. So she's really great. If you're looking to read historical romance and you don't know where to start, I would start with Kerrigan Byrne because she really has a modern voice. It does not read like what you're imagining a romance novel reads like.
Right.
And there are a lot of authors that write in a modern tone for sure, but she, she was my first foray back into historical in a while, and it's just been lovely.
Probably my favorite historical ever is Never Seduce a Scot by Maya Banks, and that she mostly writes contemporary. So that I felt like those, I get what you mean when you say like she has more like contemporary style. Like I definitely felt that in that book, and that book is probably my favorite
I've
historical.
read that series.
So
I've
good.
read that series. Is the McCabe brothers?
Okay, so yeah, there's that one. That's a 3-book series, and then there's 2 other books, Montgomery's and Armstrong's. And the first one of those is called Never Seduce a Scot, and the heroine is deaf, and she's badass.
I've
she
read this.
convinced
Yes.
everyone that she's like daft because she was trying to get out of this marriage that she didn't want to have. But really, she did get sick. Like she tried to run away and she fell off her horse and she got sick, she got hurt and she got sick. And when she came out of the sickness, she was deaf. But everybody didn't know that. They thought she had like kind of lost her mind, and she just kind of went with it because it got her out of the marriage that she didn't want. But then later, the king decides that she has to marry like their warring clans laird, and he doesn't care if she's not all together, and so that starts the whole thing. But yeah, that one's my favorite for sure, and it definitely has like a modern feeling about it, and I think that's because she mostly writes contemporary. So but yeah, I love a Highlander. Usually if in the last few years, if I was going to read a historical, it would be a Highlander versus like Regency or something like that. But in fact, you got me to read my first Garwood ever, The Wedding, or not The Wedding, The Bride.
Bride.
Yeah, and that is
Bride,
really great.
Secret, The Wedding. I mean, there is not
The
a
Secret, I
dud
did love that one the most too.
none of her books are duds. Every single one of them is a
Yeah,
freaking masterpiece.
so great. So, what are you working on right now? Like, what is the book that you're writing right now, if you want to talk about it?
I'm actually, I don't think I can talk about. Well, I have more stuff coming with Avon. I don't think they care. I mean, I've always worked. Like,
Right.
I think I'm forever working with Avon, hopefully. So I have that coming. There's some more stuff coming.
Okay.
And then I also am writing. I'm already writing a second book in the paranormal series.
Oh, yay!
Yeah. So
Awesome.
you'll meet the characters and you'll know who it's going to be probably by the end of the book.
Oh, I love when that happens. Great. I'm excited.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then if you want, you can tell everybody like where they can find you out in the internets. What's the best places to know about all the things that you're doing?
Well, I would follow me on Instagram at Tessa Bailey as an author. I also have a podcast called Read Me Romance.
Mm-hmm.
That I co-host with Alexa Riley, and we release an audiobook every week on the podcast from a different author, and it's free.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, where do you think? Where do you follow me everywhere? Where should they go?
So you've got a Facebook page, and and then there's the Read Me Romance like group page. That's always fun.
Yeah, Read Me Romance headquarters and Bailey's Babes on Facebook and wherever. You'll see me. I'm around. You can't miss me.
Yes. So, well, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for talking to us and having your book be our book of the month and taking over. That should be fun on Saturday. Everybody will get to see this hopefully, and you'll be taking over the page and they'll get to interact with you a little more. So that should be fun.
Thank you so much for having me and for loving Love or a Loser. That means so much.
It's great.
I'm excited. Thank you.
I'm excited too. And I'm excited to hug you next month at a Polycon. Anybody who's coming to a Polycon, Tessa will be there. So if this is your first book of hers, go out and read more. And if you haven't read yet,
I'll give you suggestions for
now before a Polycon because she's the best.
Aw, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yes, we'll see you on Saturday for your takeover.
Yay, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.